Alright, guys, I am the Kodiak, and today we're going to be having a little discussion about Jonathan Taylor. So, I'm sure you're probably sick about hearing about this guy's name if you've been anywhere on Dynasty Twitter, Dynasty Reddit, basically anywhere that talks about Dynasty Fantasy Football. Jonathan Taylor was a hot topic this offseason because the Colts had been a team over the past few years that was just focused on building the trenches, offensive and defensive side of the ball. Chris Ballard's first draft as the GM of the Colts was in 2018, and they selected Quentin Nelson sixth overall. And throughout the past few years, they've also invested some pretty high draft capital into the offensive and defensive trenches. Think about it, this year, they traded the 49ers, the 13th overall pick, for in exchange for DeForest Buckner. And Indianapolis is an organization with shirts printed that say, "Run the damn ball." So we're going to be talking about Jonathan Taylor's incredible college resume, and this translated into guys thinking that Jonathan Taylor was going to absolutely light shit on fire in the NFL. And there are still people who believe that he can light shit on fire because it's just not happening this year. And we'll get to why it's not happening in a little bit. But just a little background on Jonathan Taylor. So he played at Wisconsin. Now, two other running backs that have come out of Wisconsin recently, they're pretty notable. Melvin Gordon, pretty good running back for the Chargers, not great with the Broncos. And then Monte Ball, another running back who was just absolutely not great with the Broncos, turned into an alcoholic, watched the team win Super Bowl 50 in his jail cell. So yeah, it just spiraled out of downhill. But Jonathan Taylor, so he played college football at Wisconsin. He finished his college career as the number 6 all-time rushing leader in the NCAA, and he did that without having a senior year. So he also had the most rushing yards in his first 3 years of his college career out of anyone. The only player to rush for 6,000 yards in his first 3 years of college. And when you're mentioned along the likes of Herschel Walker, Adrian Peterson, other guys that running backs that were just unfucking believable in college, I think it's really hard to make a case for Jonathan Taylor to not be a top 5 college running back of all time. He finished top 10 in Heisman voting 3 times. So I think as a freshman, he finished like sixth or so. Sophomore year, he finished ninth, and then junior year, he finished fifth. So he was also a recipient of the Walker Award, and in 2018 and 2019, he was also a first team All American. So the resume before he got into the NFL was impressive. I guess the first NFL kind of like event that he took place in was the combine. And he just absolutely blew shit away. And this is why everyone got so excited about him. So he's about 5'10, 5'11, 227, 230, so pretty good build. He runs a 4.3940. And then, yeah, he had 17 reps as a bench press, which I thought he'd be a lot stronger. But yeah, his agility is insane. And I believe Brett Coleman, who's a Texans fan, was on record of saying that Jonathan Taylor was Arian Foster, but rocket strapped to his feet. So Taylor gets a lot of hype. There are a lot of teams that chose a running back in the first and second round this offseason, which really isn't all that common now that I think about it. You know, you think about CEH, Swift, JT, Akers, Dobbins, Dillon, and yeah, that's more than I think usual. So JT was picked third in this class by the Indianapolis Colts. The reason people got so excited about this landing spot is the Colts were a run heavy offense. And like I said, like I opened the video with, the Colts have been so obsessed with building their trenches. And we thought that Jonathan Taylor went to such a good landing spot to maximize his potential. So the Colts took Michael Pittman, I believe, 34th overall. And then they traded up to the 41st spot so that Jacksonville, the 42nd spot, couldn't take Taylor. So this guy has an amazing combine. He has an amazing college resume, and his team literally trades up to get him. People were so excited about this landing spot in Dynasty, and there were also some Packers fans up there in Wisconsin who said that Taylor was the next Zeke. Let me get one thing straight. Taylor was never really viewed as the next Zeke in the NFL because Ezekiel Elliott was a fourth overall selection. He is never going to be the next Saquon, who was the second overall pick. He was taken 41st overall. And the reason he was taken 41st overall as opposed to those guys like Saquon or Zeke is because there were a lot of questions about his receiving ability. Apparently, he had some trouble holding onto the football, and there were questions about his pass blocking as well. Now, last year, their running back was Marlon Mack, and Marlon Mack is a talented football player, do not get me wrong, but they just needed a little bit more. So last year, Marlon Mack had 247 carries for 1,091 yards, so 4.4 yards a carry and 8 touchdowns. Not bad. Actually, pretty damn good numbers when you think about it. But considering the offensive line, considering the fact that Indianapolis was a team that was built around running the football, Jacoby Brissett just wasn't getting it done. They drafted Taylor because they needed a little bit more. And shit, if you ask me around like draft time, who do you think is the team that is best suited to, I don't know, make Taylor a phenom in the NFL? I would have said the Colts. So all offseason, the Colts will not commit to Jonathan Taylor because, with a college resume that is still very impressive, you still have to earn your spot in the NFL. And what does Marlon Mack do week one? Marlon Mack tears his Achilles against Jacksonville. Taylor goes 6 for 7 in the receiving game with 60 yards. And Twitter is just going absolutely berserk over this guy. He has the keys to the offense. He's going to light shit on fire. But then the Colts just seem to be using him less and less. And I don't know how much of this is the fact that Taylor just isn't as amazing as we originally thought coming out of Wisconsin, which definitely seems to be the case. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, some of his displays of vision have been some of the worst runs I've seen out of an NFL caliber running back. You do not draft Jonathan Taylor in the second round to give Jordan Wilkins the ball on 4th and 1 like they did against Tennessee last night and have him get stuffed. Part of the issue is that teams are not scared of Philip Rivers at all. Jonathan Taylor faces an average of 7.3 defenders in the box, which is good for third most in the NFL. So teams respect Jonathan Taylor, but teams just are not scared of Philip Rivers because Philip Rivers hasn't been good since 2018. And I don't think this is going to get a lot better until the Colts get a capable quarterback. Rivers looked good last night against Tennessee, but let's be honest, that was Tennessee. Their defense sucks. And Frank Reich recently came out and said that Jonathan Taylor's not going to have the role that he had at Wisconsin. So I am genuinely curious. Without the Mack injury, what is the role they had in mind for Jonathan Taylor? But as I mentioned, the way they're using Taylor is just very, I don't even know what they're doing. So last night on the first drive of the game, Indianapolis is around midfield. They give it to Taylor on 4th and 1, and he basically fights for every yard. He's using everything in his power, every bit of movement in his legs to make sure that he can pick up that first down. Same drive, they're in the Titans territory. I can't remember if they were at the 20 or 30. They give the ball to Jordan Wilkins on 4th and 1, who is much, much smaller. He gets stuffed. Jonathan Taylor has 8.9 yards per route run. That is good for 4th in the NFL. His catch rate is 90.9, which is good for 3rd in the NFL. His yards per route is 1.80, so that's 7th in the NFL among running backs. So he has been kick-ass in the receiving game, and the Colts just want to give it to him against 10 men in the box. Has his vision been great? Absolutely not. He has missed several holes that, to be completely honest, if you gave Marlon Mack, he probably reaches those holes. And I think, one of the things we haven't seen from Jonathan Taylor yet is that at Wisconsin, every time he got the ball, he literally had the chance to turn it into a house call. It doesn't matter if you handed him the ball from your own 20-yard line. Every time he touched the ball, he had a chance to take it to the house. I guess as of right now, Frank Reich is either hell-bent on using a committee or just doesn't trust Taylor at all, which I guess it's fine to not trust Taylor because he's had vision issues. And he did have that one fumble in the Ravens game, but I can't even blame him on that. That was just a really good play by the defender. And Taylor had a lot of fumbles at college, but his fumble rate was 1.2% because he got the load, I think, 900 times. So he had 900 carries in college, never got hurt once. And like I said, it's just so easy to see why dudes were so hyped on him. So there were questions about his receiving workload, and people thought he would be a phenomenal bruiser between the tackles. This year, it looks like it's the exact opposite. The only times he's really looked like the same Jonathan Taylor that we saw at Wisconsin, the same one who is mentioned with the likes of Herschel Walker and Adrian Peterson, is when he's gotten the ball in screen passes, when he's ran outside zone. And I know the Colts are winning games right now, but do we trust Philip Rivers and a committee to lead them to victory in December, January? I just want to say one thing. So there was a huge argument between Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor Truthers in the offseason. It was literally like watching a debate between regular season long players and dynasty players. That's the only way I can describe it. It was literally like nastier than Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. You had the proven veteran Marlon Mack, and you had the guy who is, let's be honest, was probably going to be better in Jonathan Taylor. Marlon Mack's best games last year came against Jacksonville, Carolina, Jacksonville again, Kansas City before their run defense actually figured it out, and the Chargers. He did not play well against the Titans, did not play well against the Falcons, did not play well against the Texans, did not play well against the Broncos, did not play well against Tampa Bay. And I don't know if you guys remember, but last year Marlon Mack was a huge letdown for a lot of people in the fantasy playoffs when the Saints and Colts had that Monday Night Football game. What I'm going to say is if you're a Marlon Mack guy, I am not going to judge you. But if you were still drafting him, expecting him to continue any sort of what he did last year, when a team literally traded up in the second round for his replacement, I do not even know what to say to you. There were guys on Twitter saying that Marlon Mack was going to eat in 2020 and that the Colts offensive line was going to propel him to the next level. But the thing is, he kind of snacked in 2020, and that was with the exact same offensive line, and that was without the dude that Indianapolis traded up for in the second round to replace him. And to be completely honest, people taking Taylor in the third or fourth or fifth round, I didn't love that before the season began. This was still very much appearing to head in the trajectory of becoming a committee. But people were saying on Twitter that as soon as Matt got hurt, that oh my God, Jonathan Taylor owners were rewarded for taking him too early in season long. Which one tells me that you think anybody who drafted him in season one took him in like the second round. Two, you just sound bitter that you missed out and that Marlon Mack was going to get replaced no matter what. On the flip side, I think that Marlon Mack was the worst sixth round pick you could have made this year. And I guess it all kind of depended on what you're drafting Marlon Mack for, you know. You're drafting him to be a flex spot, whatever. Don't hate it, but if you were drafting him to be an RB1 or RB2, you're smoking crack. And this is the last thing I have to say about the Indianapolis Colts. You can make it to the postseason. You just beat the crap out of Tennessee last night. Good job to you. But you are not going to take down the Chiefs in January if you are using Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins. The only teams that have beat the Chiefs over the past 2 years, 3 years since Mahomes became the starting quarterback have been the ones that absolutely grinded the clock and were able to score a lot of points. Last year, Marlon Mack, who I spent 5 or so minutes just shitting on, but this is going somewhere. Last year, Marlon Mack was able to beat the Chiefs by himself. He averaged, like, I think 4.6 yards a carry that game, got the load 29 times for 132 yards because they kept Patrick Mahomes off the field. You are not going to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field with Nyheim Hines or Jordan Wilkins. And sure, they're good change of pace backs, but to be completely honest, my Broncos, before KC scored 40 straight on us this year, were using Philip Lindsay, who is an amazing change of pace back, and they gashed the Chiefs for like 9 yards a carry. You drafted Jonathan Taylor in the second round, the guy who runs 4.39, the guy who set basically every rushing record in college that you can think of, and a guy who has been not great on the ground this year, but so dynamic in the receiving game. Like I said, Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins are not going to beat the Chiefs this year. They are not going to take a Philip Rivers-led team over the top. The only guy that can do that in the backfield of the organization that drafted him in the second round, that traded up to get him, to keep him away from a division rival with a team that has an amazing offensive line, the only man who can propel them to success in January or even February is Jonathan Taylor. Alright, that is going to do it for the video. Depending on what happens, maybe Jonathan Taylor's jersey could go up there someday, right behind me. And I'm still a JT believer. Like I said, teams just are not scared of Philip Rivers. Maybe if they still had Andrew Luck, we'd be having an entirely different conversation. And maybe we'd even be saying Jonathan Taylor RB. Okay, I'm not going to go that far. I was going to say Jonathan Taylor RB1. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Taylor in the comment section down below. Follow me on Twitter. Link is up there or in the description below as well. Anyways, guys, have a good day and peace out.